What happens when a late-night host decides to throw out the script and go completely off the rails during a live television interview? The heart of controversy. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most uncomfortable moments in recent television history, where Seth Meyers completely blindsided his guest in ways that left viewers at home watching through their fingers. This wasn't your typical softball celebrity interview. This was a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral out of control when someone refuses to play by the rules. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because this story gets wild fast. The Late Night with Seth Meyers studio buzzes with its usual energy as the cameras roll live across the nation. Seth adjusts his tie and flashes that familiar grin toward camera one. But tonight, there's something different in his eyes, something sharper than usual. His guest, Meghan Markle, has just settled into the interview chair. Her posture perfect, her smile polished to magazine cover perfection. "So, Meghan," Seth begins, his voice carrying that conversational tone that has made him a household name. "I have to ask you about something that's been making headlines recently. There's been a lot of discussion about your humanitarian work, particularly your recent trip to Africa. Can you tell us about that experience?" Meghan's eyes light up, clearly prepared for this question. "Oh, Seth, it was absolutely transformative, working with local communities and seeing the real impact of grassroots organizations. It reminded me why I'm so passionate about using my platform to amplify voices that often go unheard. The resilience of the women I met there, their determination to create change despite facing incredible obstacles, it was truly inspiring." Seth nods along, but his expression shifts slightly. "That's wonderful to hear, but I'm curious about something specific. During your visit to the school in Johannesburg, you made a speech about education access. Can you tell me where those statistics came from?" The question hangs in the air for just a moment too long. Meghan's smile falters slightly, but she recovers quickly. "Well, Seth, those numbers come from extensive research that my team conducted with various international organizations. The specific details are quite complex. But the important thing is that these young girls deserve every opportunity to learn and grow." "I'm sure they do," Seth responds, his tone remaining friendly, but his eyes never leaving her face. "But when I had my research team look into those exact statistics you quoted, they couldn't find any international organization that had published those specific numbers. In fact, the closest data they found suggested quite different figures. Can you help me understand where your team got their information?" The studio audience, sensing the shift in energy, grows noticeably quieter. Meghan's media training kicks in as she maintains her composure, but there's a tightness around her eyes that wasn't there moments before. "Seth, I think there might be some confusion here. My team works with multiple data sources and sometimes the way statistics are presented can vary depending on the methodology used. What's important is that we're having this conversation about education access at all. These girls need advocates and I'm proud to be one of them." Seth leans forward slightly, his interviewer instincts clearly engaged. "I absolutely agree that they need advocates, but don't you think those advocates have a responsibility to be accurate with the information they're sharing? When you're speaking to thousands of people about these issues, using your platform and your influence, shouldn't the facts be verifiable?" The question cuts deeper than expected. Meghan's practiced smile becomes more strained, and she takes a barely perceptible breath before responding. "Of course, accuracy is important, Seth, but I think we're missing the bigger picture here. Whether the literacy rate is 60% or 65%, the fact remains that too many young girls around the world are being denied educational opportunities. That's the real story, but you didn't say 60 or 65%. Seth counters, his voice still conversational but now carrying an edge that makes the audience shift uncomfortably in their seats. "You said 42%. And when my team checked with UNESCO, UNICEF and the World Bank, none of them had data supporting that figure for the region you were discussing. In fact, their most recent data suggests the rate is actually much higher than what you claimed." The silence that follows is deafening. Meghan's face cycles through several micro-expressions. Surprise, confusion, something that might be anger, before settling on what appears to be hurt. Her voice, when she finally speaks, carries a slight tremor that she can't quite hide. "Seth, I'm not sure why you're choosing to attack my humanitarian work on live television. I've dedicated significant time and resources to these causes because I genuinely care about making a difference. If there's been some miscommunication about specific statistics, that's something my team can certainly address. But to question my commitment to these issues, to suggest that I'm somehow being dishonest about work that means everything to me, that feels unnecessarily cruel. The accusation of cruelty hangs in the air like a challenge. Seth's expression doesn't change, but something in his posture suggests he's just getting started. The studio audience remains unusually quiet, sensing they're witnessing something far more intense than the typical late-night celebrity chat. I'm not questioning your commitment, Meghan. I'm questioning your preparation. And frankly, I'm questioning whether someone in your position should be making public statements about complex international issues without doing the homework first. Your words carry weight. People listen to you. Doesn't that come with some responsibility? Meghan's composure begins to crack in ways that the cameras capture in unforgiving detail. Her hands, which had been gracefully folded in her lap, now grip the armrest of her chair. Her breathing becomes slightly more visible, and when she speaks there's a defensiveness that wasn't there before. Seth, I've spent years working on these issues. I've traveled to these places. I've met with experts. I've seen the challenges firsthand. If you want to sit here and nitpick statistics rather than focus on the real problems these communities are facing, that says more about your priorities than mine. My priority, Seth responds without missing a beat, is making sure that when someone with your platform speaks about these issues, they're giving people accurate information. Because when you get the facts wrong, it doesn't just affect your credibility, it affects the credibility of the entire cause you're claiming to support. The tension in the studio is now palpable. Even the camera operators seem to sense they're capturing something extraordinary, something that will be replayed and analyzed for days to come. Meghan's face has gone slightly pale, and her voice, when she responds, carries a note of genuine distress. I can't believe we're having this conversation. I came here tonight to talk about important work. Work that's making a real difference in people's lives, and instead, you're trying to humiliate me on national television over what amounts to a footnote in a speech. Seth's response comes without hesitation, his tone still measured, but now carrying an unmistakable bite. If getting the facts right is just a footnote to you, then maybe that's the problem. The words hit like a physical blow. Meghan's eyes widen, and for a moment, the mask of royal composure slips completely. Her mouth opens slightly, then closes as if she's searching for words that simply won't come. The studio audience remains frozen, collectively holding their breath as they witness this collision between celebrity privilege and journalistic accountability. That's incredibly unfair. Meghan finally manages, her voice now noticeably shaky. You're twisting my words and making this about something it's not. I've never claimed to be a statistician or a researcher. I'm someone who cares deeply about these issues and tries to use my platform to help. Seth doesn't let up. But caring isn't enough when you're speaking to millions of people, is it? When you stood in front of that school and quoted those numbers, you weren't just sharing your feelings. You were presenting what you claimed were facts. And when those facts turn out to be wrong, what does that do to your credibility the next time you want to advocate for something important? The question hangs in the air, and Meghan's response reveals just how rattled she's become. You know what, Seth? Maybe we should talk about credibility. Maybe we should talk about how you're treating a guest on your show. Is this really the kind of journalism you want to be known for? Ambushing people who are trying to do good in the world. Ambushing. Seth's eyebrows rise slightly. I asked you about a speech you gave publicly. That's not an ambush. That's accountability. And frankly, if asking follow-up questions about your public statements feels like an ambush to you, maybe that tells us something about how prepared you were to defend those statements. The exchange is becoming more heated with each passing moment. Meghan's hands are now visibly trembling, and there's a flush creeping up her neck that the studio lights make impossible to hide. Her voice when she speaks again carries a note of desperation that makes several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is exactly the kind of treatment that made me want to step back from public life in the first place. I came here tonight in good faith thinking we could have a meaningful conversation about issues that matter. Instead, you're trying to tear me down over technical details that completely miss the point. The point is accuracy, Meghan. The point is that when you have a platform like yours, words matter, facts matter, and when you get them wrong, it doesn't just affect you. It affects every organization trying to do legitimate work in these areas. So now you're questioning the legitimacy of my work. Meghan's voice rises slightly, the royal training finally cracking under pressure. I'm suggesting that credibility is earned through consistency and accuracy. And right now, we're not just talking about one statistic. We're talking about a pattern. Should we discuss your speech at the Women's Empowerment Conference where you claim to have personally funded scholarships for 30 young women? Because when reporters tried to verify that claim, they couldn't find any record of those scholarships existing. The studio falls into complete silence. Even the cameras seem to stop their subtle movements. As everyone processes what Seth has just said, Meghan's face goes through a series of expressions. Shock, anger, something that might be panic. How dare you question my charitable work? You have no idea what I've done behind the scenes, what I've contributed, what I've sacrificed to try to make a difference. Then help me understand, Seth responds, his tone now carrying a note of genuine curiosity mixed with skepticism. Because when journalists try to verify these claims, they hit dead ends. When they ask for documentation, they get stonewalled. When they reach out to the organizations you claim to work with, those organizations have no comment or no record. So, help me understand how I'm supposed to take your word for it when the evidence doesn't seem to exist. The question cuts to the heart of everything, and Meghan's response reveals just how deep the problem goes. Her voice becomes defensive in a way that makes her sound younger, more vulnerable, but also more desperate. Maybe that's a concept that's foreign to you in your world of ratings and sound bites. But some of us believe in doing good without needing credit for it. Seth's expression hardens. That's a convenient answer for someone who regularly talks about their charitable work in public speeches. You can't have it both ways, Meghan. The accusation lands with devastating accuracy. Meghan's composure, which had been hanging by a thread, finally snaps completely. Tears begin to form in her eyes, and her voice breaks as she responds. You're being incredibly cruel right now. You're taking someone who's trying to do good in the world and tearing them down for your entertainment. Is this really who you want to be? The emotional appeal might have worked in a different setting, but Seth shows no signs of backing down. I want to be known as someone who asks the questions that need to be asked. Someone who doesn't give celebrities a free pass just because they claim to be doing good work. If that makes me cruel in your eyes, I can live with that. Can you live with destroying someone's reputation based on incomplete information? Meghan shoots back, her tears now flowing freely. Can you live with the fact that you're potentially damaging important causes just to score points in an interview? I'm not destroying anything, Seth responds calmly. I'm asking you to defend claims you've made publicly. If those claims can't be defended, if those causes are damaged by scrutiny, then maybe the problem isn't with the questions. Maybe the problem is with the answers. The studio audience watches in stunned silence as one of the most high-profile figures in the world breaks down on live television. Meghan's tears have created visible streaks in her makeup, and her attempts to maintain dignity are becoming increasingly desperate. This is a nightmare, she whispers more to herself than to Seth or the audience. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. This is exactly why I stepped away from everything. Because no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try to help, someone will always be there to tear you down. Seth's response is measured but unflinching. Maybe the problem isn't that people are trying to tear you down. Maybe the problem is that you're building yourself up on foundations that can't support the weight of scrutiny. The metaphor hits home with devastating effectiveness. Meghan's face crumples, and for a moment, she looks not like a polished public figure, but like someone who's been caught in a lie that spiraled far beyond their control. The cameras capture every detail of her distress, every tear, every tremor, in her voice as she struggles to respond. I can't do this anymore, she finally says, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't defend myself against accusations that seem designed to make me look like a fraud no matter what I say. The admission hangs in the studio air like smoke from a fire that's burned everything in its path. Seth leans back slightly, his expression shifting from confrontational to something that might almost be sympathetic. But his journalistic instincts keep him from letting the moment pass without one final push. Then don't defend against accusations, he says quietly. Just tell the truth right here, right now on live television. Tell the millions of people watching exactly what charitable work you've actually done with actual documentation, actual proof. Give them something real to believe in. Meghan looks up at him through her tears, and there's something in her eyes that suggests she's reached a breaking point where the truth might actually be easier than continuing the charade. Her voice is raw, stripped of all pretense when she finally responds. You want the truth, Seth. The truth is that I wanted to make a difference so badly that I sometimes got ahead of myself. The truth is that when you have everyone expecting you to be this perfect advocate for every cause, sometimes you say things that sound better than the reality. Sometimes you make commitments you haven't actually made yet, or talk about work that's still in the planning stages like it's already been accomplished. The confession is devastating in its honesty. The studio audience, which had been watching this destruction unfold with horrified fascination, now seems genuinely moved by this moment of raw vulnerability. But Seth isn't finished. So when you talked about those scholarships for 30 young women, what was the reality? He presses, his tone softer now, but still relentless. Meghan's shoulders slump in defeat. The reality is that I had meetings about potentially funding scholarships. I had conversations with organizations about what it might look like, but the actual funding, the actual scholarships, they were still being negotiated when I gave that speech. I got excited about the possibility and spoke about it like it was already happening in the statistics from your Africa speech. I remembered seeing those numbers somewhere in some report or briefing document, but I didn't verify them before I used them. I trusted that my memory was accurate, and I was wrong. Her voice breaks again. I was wrong about a lot of things. The moment is simultaneously heartbreaking and infuriating. Here is someone with enormous privilege and platform admitting to essentially making up facts to support her public image. Yet doing so with such genuine remorse that it's impossible not to feel some sympathy for her position. Seth seems to recognize the weight of this moment. His next question comes with careful deliberation. Do you understand why this matters, Meghan? Do you understand why people need to be able to trust the information that comes from someone in your position? I do now, she whispers. I understand that every word carries weight, that every claim needs to be verified, that people are counting on me to be accurate. I understand that I've let people down, not just the audience here tonight, but everyone who believed in the work I claim to be doing. So, what happens now? Seth asks. How do you rebuild trust that's been broken this badly? Meghan takes a shuddering breath, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand in a gesture that's more human than anything she's done all evening. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I should even try. Maybe I've done enough damage to these causes that the best thing I can do is step away completely and let people who actually know what they're doing take over. Or maybe Seth suggests, his tone becoming more constructive for the first time all evening. You could start by acknowledging your mistakes publicly, correcting the record on every false claim you've made, and then proving through actions rather than words that you're serious about making a difference. The suggestion seems to give Meghan a small spark of hope. You think people would give me that chance? After tonight, after everything that's been exposed, you think there's a path back from this? Seth considers the question carefully. I think people are more forgiving of honest mistakes than they are of continued deception, but it would require you to be completely transparent going forward. No more exaggerated claims. No more speaking about work before it's actually been completed. No more hoping that good intentions will cover for sloppy facts. That sounds terrifying, Meghan admits with a laugh that's half sob. Being that accountable for everything. Being that careful with every word. Welcome to what actual advocates deal with every single day. Seth responds. The people doing real work in these communities don't have the luxury of getting the facts wrong. Their credibility is all they have, and they guard it carefully because they know that one mistake can undermine years of progress. The comparison is brutal in its accuracy, and Meghan seems to finally understand the full scope of what she's been doing wrong. I've been playing at activism while they've been living it. That's probably the most honest thing you've said all night, Seth acknowledges. The question is whether you're willing to stop playing and start actually doing the work. Meghan looks directly into the camera for the first time since the interview began. Her face streaked with tears, but her expression more genuine than it's been all evening. I owe everyone an apology. I owe the organizations I claim to work with an apology. I owe the communities I claim to serve an apology. And I owe all of you watching tonight an apology for not being the advocate I claim to be. The studio remains completely silent as she continues. I don't know if I can earn back your trust, but I want to try. I want to start over, do the actual work, learn from people who've been doing this longer and better than I have. I want to prove that tonight wasn't just about getting caught, but about finally understanding what real advocacy requires. Seth nods slowly. That's a start, but words are easy, Meghan. We've established tonight that you're very good with words. The hard part is going to be backing them up with consistent, verifiable action. I know, she says simply. I know that. I have years of work ahead of me to prove that this moment mattered, that I learned something from being called out like this. It's going to be humbling and difficult and probably embarrassing at times. Good, Seth responds bluntly. Because the work you claim to be doing is humbling and difficult and embarrassing. If you're not willing to experience those feelings, then you're not ready to do the work. The interview winds down with Meghan looking exhausted, but somehow more authentic than she's appeared in years of public appearances. The tears have stopped, but the damage to her carefully constructed image is complete and irreversible. As the cameras prepare to cut away, Seth delivers one final observation. I hope everyone watching tonight understands that this wasn't about destroying someone for entertainment. This was about holding public figures accountable for the claims they make and the influence they wield. When someone has a platform like Meghan's, scrutiny isn't cruelty, it's necessity. Meghan nods in agreement, looking like someone who's just survived a car accident. Shaken, but somehow grateful to be alive. Thank you for asking the hard questions, Seth. I needed someone to ask them, even if I didn't want to answer them. The interview ends with both host and guest looking drained by the intensity of what they've just experienced. The studio audience erupts in applause, though it's unclear whether they're clapping for the journalism, the accountability, or simply the raw human drama they've just witnessed. What started as a routine celebrity interview became a masterclass in how quickly things can unravel when preparation meets scrutiny, when polished talking points collide with actual facts, and when someone finally decides to ask the questions that everyone's been thinking but nobody's been brave enough to voice. Make sure to subscribe for more stories like this one and drop a comment below. What do you think was the most shocking moment from this interview? Was Seth too harsh, or was this exactly the kind of accountability we need to see more of in celebrity culture? Let me know your thoughts.